Indra Nooyi is one of the world's most iconic CEOs who incredibly broke the barriers of gender and race to emerge as the first woman of color and immigrant to run a Fortune 50 company, PepsiCo. In her book, My Life in Full, which she calls not just a memoir, but a framework for sharing her life lessons, Indra reflects on her extraordinary life and speaks honestly and openly of her vulnerabilities and strengths, and of her abiding passion to the issue of caring, which Indra believes is fundamental to the growth and strong flight of women. Indra, welcome to eTimes, the lifestyle and entertainment portal of Times of India. It is a pleasure to have you here with us.
It's a pleasure to talk with you, and thank you for having me on your program.
Indra, I went through your book. Of course, I read your book and I found it fascinating. And it was really interesting to go through your entire life and read up a lot of stuff about you that one did not know earlier. But for me, the most personal and intimate revelations in your book are about your childhood, where you trace your early years with your parents, your sister, your brother, and above all, your beautiful relationship with your grandfather. And you know, the vignettes that you paint of moments with your mother, you and your sister Chandrika, the moments, the time you spent with her, and how while cutting the vegetables or even while serving food and all, she would run you through those tests and ask you, give you 10 minutes to prepare for an essay on what would I do if I was the Prime Minister of India. And how, despite the fact that she was not educated, she was able to take you through all these, and her anxiety as a mother that her daughters should be able to complete her vision and probably have dreams of their own, which they should be able to achieve. Would you like to talk a bit about those years?
Yeah, in fact, you know, Vinita, I'd say that I am a product of my childhood and upbringing. I am who I am because of the solid foundation I had. And I'm grateful to that forever. The Indian values, the fact that I grew up in a household where the belief was that the women should be educated as much as the men. A family which gave its girls some freedom. It was within a frame. And within that frame, you had all the freedom. But if you violated it, that frame got really small. So we had discipline, but we had freedom within the discipline. You know, I was a tomboy. I'd climb trees. I'd play cricket. I even played in a women's rock band. All of that was not put down. Nobody stopped me from doing those things. All that I was told was within a frame. Under the watchful eye of your parents, you can do all this. Don't think you can just run off around the world doing these things. So I think I am a product of all of that upbringing. As I always say, my mother brought us up with one foot on the brake, one foot on the accelerator.
Yes.
The brake was the society and what women were expected to do, which my mother had to live under. The accelerator was, she's a brilliant, brilliant woman, truly brilliant woman. Had she been allowed to go to college, she would have been a CEO, without a doubt. But you know, in those days, that facility wasn't available to women. And families, you know, her family could only afford to send the boys to college. So my mother missed out. So she lived her life through her daughters. So the societal pressures put the brake, her desire to see her daughters soar, and then my father and my grandfather, you know, urging her on, had a heavy foot on the accelerator. So I grew up with that duality, if you want to call it that. And in many ways, I think I am a product of that duality. I am a product of this brake and accelerator, which all help me think about what I can do in my life and where the limits are reached.
It's so beautiful the way, you know, parents of that generation passed on their dreams and visions to their children and were even able to mold their children in such a way that they were able to take flight and meet those dreams,
That's a great
visions.
Point. Great point, Vinita.
Would we today be able to do the same for our children, I wonder? Do our children allow us to impose our dreams or visions to them, pass them on to them?
That's a very profound question in a way, because, you know, in a funny way, when we were growing up, we were pushed and pushed and pushed to dream. Doesn't matter what the dream is, just dream. In my case, speak about all parents in my life, in my generation. What we all tell our kids is, dream, be whatever you want to be.
Yes.
You don't have to be a corporate CEO. If you want to be an artist, If you want to be a community organizer, be it, but contribute to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, our generation came with nothing. We created wealth for the next generation. We're telling the next generation, don't be fixated on creating wealth because we've created it for you. Go give back to society. Be anything you want to be. If you want to be a corporate CEO, that's fine too. But what we're telling you is if you want to dream and just do good for society, go do it. And so I think they have a different pressure, but they do feel the pressure.
So you are able to, yes, pass on that vision. And that is the cyclical nature of life, interestingly. Your parents wanted you to maybe, get success, earn wealth, and you did that. And now you want your children to, that you say that we've already built this for you. So use this foundation and go and envision something beyond this for yourself.
That's exactly right.
You speak a lot about your upbringing as a good South Indian Brahmin girl. Is there anything of that you've imparted to your daughters, you passed on to them?
See, when I refer to myself as a South Indian Brahmin girl, it's not to draw attention to any caste. It's more to say, Brahmanism was a funny, disciplined upbringing, very disciplined, not a wealthy upbringing, but a very disciplined upbringing. But there was only one focus, education. Grades, 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 grades. That's all we focused on, nothing else. Nobody talked about anything but grades. When the parents got together, they talked about grades. In a way, I try to impose the same on my kids. So education was most important because we had a very simple rule, Vinita. If you educate the child, girls and boys, you've given them a future. So education was an investment in the future. So our point was money can come, money can go. People might come and people might go. But if we gave you education, we gave you tools of the trade, we gave you an ability to go earn a living for yourself. So for both my husband and me, education was everything. So if there's one value we carried through, it's education.
Yes, that is indeed the most important thing any parent can impart to their child, education and good basic values of
that's exactly right.
Yes, that's so important. Yeah. And your grandfather, and we have to talk about him because he was quite the hero in your life.
Yeah.
And perhaps very interestingly, a person of that generation also gave you dreams, maybe not his dreams, but he possibly made you what you are today. A lot of it, like you say in your book, is to do with your grandfather and how he, you say in your book that your dedication to work and regardless of all the challenges that come, he remained, and the fact that you kept pushing yourself, it's because he remains the greatest teacher and you refer to his life lessons in every aspect of your adulthood. Now, that's a big thing to say, to remember your grandfather who was in your part of your life so many years ago, and you refer to him in every aspect of your adulthood. That's beautiful. And
I mean, he was such a big figure, Vinita, and that I've never seen somebody so totally dedicated to the grandkids as he was. So totally dedicated.
Amazing, yes.
A simple man who lived, simply, didn't go out much either. And his only life was around the grandkids. When they come home from school, what's their homework? How can I help them move ahead? And if we got a grade that was not in the top grade, he took it personally. Why did you miss 10 points in your math exam? I must not have taught you properly. Yeah. Everything was personal to him. I've never met anybody in my life who has been, including myself to my kids, anybody in my life who was so dedicated to the grandkids as he was to us. He was our life.
Yeah. And you talk about your chronic inability to relax. And that is something that I could so relate to. And I want to know more about that because it's something that I don't know if I consider it a lucky thing for me or a curse. I really don't know. But did you think about it as consider that a blessing or a curse for you?
I have the same, I have the same discussion with myself that you're having. Yeah. I have the same discussion saying, is that a blessing or a curse? There are some days when I can't sleep, I go, it's a blessing, I can finish reading. The other days I go, I'm tired, but I can't sleep. I am tired. I try to sleep and I cannot sleep. The same thing. Rest. Exactly. The brain doesn't let you rest. Oh my God. That's unbelievable. Yeah. Both of us are like that.
Yeah, but that is what was so amazing for me, in your book. I know a lot of people, lots of CEOs and all will possibly read it to figure out your work at PepsiCo and, the rest of your career. I read your book more from a life viewpoint from the life of a woman, of a career woman who had to fight so many biases. And I could relate to so much in there. And I thought, oh my God, there are bits in this book. There are chapters in this book which must be taken out and possibly read by people who would not bring themselves to read the full book, because it's so relatable. It's so relatable, and it's amazing the way you just bring out your vulnerabilities, and you don't bother. You speak of the time when you went to the US, and you felt so alone. You felt so lonely, and you even thought about dropping it all and coming back, but you did not. You talk about how people looked down upon you at that time for your way of dressing. I mean, yes, what a sad thing. And how you, despite that, there was this scene in your book, and I talk of it like a movie, because when you read the book, it's almost like a movie running in your eyes. There's this scene in the book where you wore an oversized jacket and short pants, and how when you walked in, although everybody laughed at you, but you had the confidence to still go in and appear for the interview and to get the job. Now, where did this confidence come from, Indra?
No choice but to have confidence, because at that point, I needed a job for the summer. You can't be a chooser when you don't have too many choices, right? And so my point is, I know I'm dressed very badly. I have no choice. I just have to go to the interview and hope they don't keep looking at my horrible clothes. So the trick is to sit behind the desk, to tuck the feet in so nobody sees my horrible shoes, and then with great confidence answer the questions, but deep down inside you're dying.
Yeah.
So survival does amazing things for you.
And in Chennai, in school and college, you were quite a leader in so many ways, whether outside in the sports field, and doing well in school and college, and people were looking at you, and then suddenly you go to this arena where people look at you as if you're a different creature. And also, you've said in your book somewhere further down that I still sometimes feel what an immigrant feels. I still feel like that. I still try hard to blend in, try hard to be accepted and all. Why does such a feeling last for a person, an iconic person like you?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, you still have that fear that guides you, because I always say, I chose to come to this country as an immigrant. I want to do America proud for welcoming me as much as it did. I want to do India proud because India gave me my start in life. I want to do my family proud, both my Krishnamurti family and the Nooyi family. And so I just feel this weight of the whole thing. I don't know why, but I do. But I will also say one thing, Vinita. I talked about all of those incidents, coming here, being lonely, being looked down upon. But that was 10% of the people. 90% of the people are wonderful to me. Wonderful, wonderful. So I have chosen to define my experiences through the eyes of the 90%. Because the mentors that came out and pulled me along everywhere, people who supported me, promoted me, people who gave me advice. I would say 90% of the people here were amazing. And there's one thing I do say in the book, which I feel very strongly about. For a person of color, an immigrant, to come and be the CEO of an iconic company could happen only in America. And so I am a great living example of the wonderful American dream, the American experience.
Yeah, yes, you say that in the book. And but that is what amazed me, that for us, you are it. You have achieved it all, and you have it all, and you've been staying there so many years. 40 years or so you've been in America. And if you should still feel those pressures, so that was what struck me, really. And
it's just me, though. It's me. I don't know why I'm wired that way.
There are some of us who are like that, and perhaps even the guilt, the very famous leave your crown in the garage comment that your mother made. The fact that you brought it out, and it helped a lot of women across our country, at least across India, address that issue, and to realize that a woman like Indra Nooyi feels the guilt of not being able to spend enough time with her children. So it's not just us. We are not the only ones who feel like that. So it started many conversations there. And I think it was a very important statement, and a very it was really brave of you to make it at that time and to talk about it. And
It's the
confusing.
honest truth. You know what? There's no point sugarcoating all this, as you know. I think honesty is the best way to think about these issues and then find solutions. I mean, our goal is to see how to build support structures, how to build a sisterhood, how to use the family multi-generational living, all to support us as opposed to being stress factors for us. I mean, women have got enough stress already. I think it's time to de-stress us, especially women with families need to be de-stressed.
Would you say that women should not feel any guilt at all? If a woman is in your position, working so hard and getting it all, I mean, they say that you can't have it all, but from the perspective of a lot of women, you do have it, you do get it, did get it. Would you say that then it is fair not to feel that sense of guilt?
You know, what people say and what you feel are two different things. People might say,
Yes.
let go of all the guilt.
Yeah.
You can let go of some of the guilt, but I think perfection is a DNA flaw in us. Yeah. We want to be perfect at everything. We want to be the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect executive, whatever that perfect means. We define perfect and we push the bar higher and higher for ourselves because that's how we are wired. And so even if people tell me, let go of the guilt, I say, fine, I'll let go of it, but really hasn't gone. And so I'd say it lessened over time, Vinita. It's lessened over time, but it never goes away fully.
Yeah, but if you had not chased your dream and perhaps just been Indra Nooyi, the mother and the wife, then you would have been feeling guilty about all that lost potential, which would
absolutely correct. Absolutely. I know so many women who've quit their jobs and then feel deeply resentful that they could have aspired to something more and they couldn't do it. So I think there's regrets and guilt on both sides.
Yeah.
And how you thread through all this is the issue.
Yeah, true. And interestingly, reading through the book, whenever I read about you applying to an institute, I read about you applying for a job, you seemed to get them all. Wherever you applied, you got the job, whatever you wanted, you got it. Would you say that a lot of it was, your success was due to luck? Or is it all, chasing something with a sense of purpose and knowing what you want? What is more important?
I don't know, when I got the job at Metro BHSL, I'm coming out of IIM Calcutta. I asked SL Rao, I said, Surendra, why did you give me the job? I mean, there's so many guys you could have picked. He said, all those guys were going after you and you held your ground.
Yes.
So again, I came into the workforce at a time when there weren't many women. So I stood out. And the fact that the product of my upbringing, I could speak about issues in a more profound way, that I could hold my own against the men, made me stand out. So I was also a product of the times more than anything else. Today, there are more women. So the competition is different. In my case, it was 2 women showing up for an interview with 50 men. And if they just survive, they're pretty good because they're basically telling the men, we are going to be heard too, which means you're very good. So you see, the times helped me too. The times help and they also hurt. But if you used it properly, it helped.
So you've seen those times and you've also seen the times today when there are so many women competing with each other. And like I say, when we were children, at that time, our parents would say, oh, my daughter's very intelligent or my son is very intelligent. Today, somebody says, oh, your son is very intelligent or your daughter. You say, yeah, all children are. Everybody is. Every child is well informed. Every child is intelligent and doing well. Everybody seems to be doing so well. In such a scenario, Indra, what is it that will hold women in good stead? Women, on a career path and women who are still fighting with the same kind of biases. Women may have grown and developed a lot, but the biases still remain there. So what would be your advice to these women?
Very important question. I think the way we need to approach it in a country like India, leaders, corporate leaders in the seats of power should be buying these books and having their leaders read it. Not because it's my book, but it's the issues we're talking about. To talk about, hey, is there validity in these issues? Why shouldn't we address them? And that's not what I'm seeing in India. In fact, I'm seeing zero corporates really leaning in on these books. So to me, that's the biggest surprise. Big difference between the US and India.
Okay. And we were talking about, like, what advice would you give to the girls of today? Like you speak about how you give some very valuable tips where you talk about how women, sometimes should remain silent and not talk too much. And why is that so? I mean, that could be misinterpreted, which is why I want you to talk about
I'm not asking him to be silent and not talk too much. I think interventions have to be because you have something to say as opposed to clocking speaking time. I never say you shouldn't speak. You absolutely should speak if you have something to say. So I'd say all of men and women should think about their interventions very carefully. I never ever say do not speak up. In fact, I would say make sure you're heard, but make sure you're heard for content, not for just appearing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my mantra has always been, Vinita, when you say something, it's memorable, and people say, she made a great point.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about what is my proposition? What is my brand proposition? My brand proposition was that I was always prepared for meetings. And when I spoke, I left behind something for the group to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to separate out. If you want to be a leader and ascend, that's what it's going to take. Understand what your contributions are going to be and contribute. If you just want to exist in a corporation and keep your job, that's a whole different issue. But you have to decide which track you're on.
Yeah. And what I also found very interesting is the point that you made, and so true, that as a woman, you have to work much harder, know much more. And I believe you said up to 25 to 50% more, you have to know more than the men who are possibly working in the same project as you.
That used to be the case when I was coming up. I think nowadays it's getting more even. Still, I think women have to work harder to earn their stripes. In my early days, women didn't even exist in the boardrooms. So it was all like when you showed up, it's like, what is this person doing here? So we had to establish credibility. I think now the situation is getting way better, touch wood.
Maybe in the US, but not so much here, really. Here, still, you see a lot of women at the lower levels. You'll see quite a few women in the mid level, but at the top, you hardly see any women in most corporates.
But I think we have to talk about that. I think we have to talk about that because women are incredibly competent.
And which is why I could relate to a lot of what you said about men trying to talk over women, men trying to use words like strident, difficult. Oh, I'm scared of her. She's too difficult to handle. I mean, too difficult to handle. Very, very. If you keep hearing these kind of dialogues, still you keep hearing them. So
I agree with you. And they roll their eyes when women talk, and they exchange knowing glances. All of that happens. First, there's got to be a critical mass of women who call out this sort of behavior. Yes. And women shouldn't compete just with the women. They should also help each other. And I think that, as I said, the men in power should read these books and talk about how to get rid of some of that bad behavior.
Yeah. And we must have you come across and talk about these issues as well. They'll probably perk up more and listen to you. And then there will be a difference,
and I do want to come there and do want to talk about these issues.
And then an interesting part was when we spoke about how in the beginning you were dressed not like the others and a little differently. But then you talk about how you realized the power of looking the part, even after you had started dressing like a CEO and all. But it started. So when you realized when your sartorial makeover happened, let's say when a freelance consultant approached you and you said you were embarrassed, nervous, and yet intrigued. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, I knew that I didn't dress great, okay? But I was making progress versus what I used to dress. So I measured myself from where I was as opposed to where I could be. But I didn't know who to approach to help me give myself a sartorial makeup. I was too embarrassed to ask anybody until Gordon one day on his own approached me, which I thought was very gutsy on his part. Yeah. I was intrigued. I was upset, also angry a little bit, saying, who is this guy to come to me? At the same time, that he was such a nice guy. He was not at all an abrasive, but very nice person coming to me and saying, hey, give me a shot. And I just thought there was a certain unselfishness about him because he could have ended up saying, being without a job, because I could have said, who the hell are you? Get out of PepsiCo. I didn't, right? He risked everything. So I thought there was a certain unselfishness about it. And so I went to Saks very nervous. And then I was pleasantly surprised because when he changed the way I dressed, I realized that it gave me added confidence, really added confidence. And I will say to a lot of young women, in many ways, how you groom yourself for the workplace is as important as what you say and how you behave.
Yeah. And you said there, and it made me laugh, that perhaps clothes make a woman as well.
Yes, right. Never realized it, but
because it made a difference, you said, when you went to the boardroom.
First impressions are how you look and how you walk and how you show up. You might as well create a fantastic first impression.
So, Indra, what are the qualities that you brought as a woman brings as a CEO to the table, which possibly a man can?
I think over-preparedness, wanting to be better than anybody else. Those were all, self-driven. I had a lot of empathy. I could read my people, and I really cared about my people. I truly, genuinely cared about my employees, my senior executives. I knew what the burdens that they had to deliver the numbers. And I knew them as people with their families and their hopes and dreams. So I got to know each person very, very closely. And so their relationship with me was one of boss and person working for me, as well as somebody I can go to if I have an issue. So they would always come to me if they had a personal issue. So it created a lot of trust and loyalty between them and me. And I cherish each one of them. Truly, I had an outstanding team, and I am who I was who I was because of how they performed for PepsiCo.
Yeah. And so you did have a special relationship with them, and something as a woman, which was what you brought to the table, was that warm connection with your employees.
Very warm connection, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And gave them permission to talk to me about anything that was bothering them, which is what they appreciated, which is what I appreciate.
And when a lot of young women must be coming up to you and asking you, how did you succeed? What was your mantra for success?
Yeah.
And what are the qualities that you would say that women should nurture, and any prejudices that they must shed when they are out there in the battle for success?
I think first it's a decades of women, because women, we need talent, and women are incredibly talented. They're getting the college degrees, they're doing well, they're hungry to have economic freedom. So I think if companies look for just talent, women will rise to the top. So I feel like this is the time for women. What do we need to do? I think women and men, the requirements are the same. First, competence. Don't ever think competence is not important. Competence is the single most important thing. The second is we all have to develop incredible courage and confidence. At the end of the day, everything is to do with how courageous you are in transmitting your messages and how confident you are to support your message through thick and thin so that you don't waver. The third one, and I read something about it today, your communication skills are everything.
Yes.
Everything. It's very, very important that you fine-tune your communication skills so that you can communicate to large groups of people, bring them along with you, and effect change. Mm-hmm. Curiosity. We all have to be lifelong students. And we have to constantly keep asking why, understand technologies, understand disruption, understand what's happening in the world around us. And if we didn't do that, Vinita, we quickly fall behind. And the final thing I tell you is our compass. Integrity is a 0 or 100% thing. Nobody can say, Vinita is 90% integrity. You either got integrity or you don't. So I think all of us should live by a code of conduct that the outside world says a person of high integrity. Mm-hmm. So if we just focus on these, would be fantastic.
So well said. Yes. And so true. So Indra, what after now that you've retired from PepsiCo, and of course you're on the board of a large number of companies, talk to us a bit about, you do talk about it in your book, of course, but for our viewers, talk to us a bit about what you are planning to do next. Right now, what are you engaged in?
In the US, there are a lot of organizations that have done fantastic work on care. How do you set up a care system, working with state governments, et cetera, et cetera. I want to work with them and figure out how to accelerate their work. There's no point starting something new. There's a lot of people who've already worked on this. They've researched it, they've scored it. We need to figure out how to convene them and accelerate them. In a country like India, again, I want to work with local people. A lot of local people exist. And there used to be a system called the Anganwadi system in India, which was in concept a very good system, but it's atrophied over time. How do we not do Anganwadi 2.0, make it 4.0, reconceptualize it to say in rural communities to start with? How do you provide that sort of a backbone structure for women who work in the fields, for women who do day work, what to do with their kids? Where can they have a form of childcare and maternal care so the kids can get some early childhood education so they're prepared for school, as opposed to being just dropped in the field and then hoping to survive. So, the idea is to find the right partners in India and do some experiments. And if that works, figure out how to co-opt more people to scale it up. So right now I'm in the business of giving back even more of my time and all the resources I have.
And a good part of it will come to India as well. You want to work here as well.
I want to work with people in India to accelerate whatever it is. Absolutely.
You talk about care of the elderly as well, along with care of children, because
it's caring.
As you are kind of sandwiched between your mother and your children, you realize your importance, the role you play for your mother as well as for your children. And in the future,
I think all of us are going to be part of a sandwich generation. We have children, they will always be dependent on us, even if they're grown up. And then, of course, you've got parents at the other end. And many parents rely on us to take care of them. That is our intergenerational responsibility. Everywhere we look, we need to care for others, but we need to care for the caregivers. And we need a care system for the caregivers. So I think we all have to think about how we're going to allow a care system to exist and thrive, because we need it to exist and thrive.
So this is really the thread that runs through your book also: family, the importance of family, the importance of care, from the first chapter to the last. And it all interestingly comes together very well, very beautifully.
And that's a core value that I hold very, very dear.
Yeah. And the promise that you've given at the end of the book, which I will leave to readers to really read and come to know what, because we must leave something for them to pick up the book and read as well. You found that this is the purpose of your life now, after post-retirement, and you feel it's your purpose. What do you think is the purpose of life in general for people, and how does one arrive at that understanding?
That's a profound question, Vinita. It has to come from the inside. You've got to feel it because you see things around you, or you see problems around you that require a solution. And then something inside you says, go help. If you don't have that inner calling, you won't sustain your interest in that. So I think people have to be aware. People have to be aware of the situation around you. People have to be very aware of the fact that the world needs people to help improve the situation and other people's lot in life, especially people who are not as well off as you are or don't have the resources you do. If you truly care for the community, for the country and the world around you, you'll find things you can do to help. And to me, I'm driven by that incredible sense of purpose. And I don't know, I feel for every issue that I see.
Yes.
So I have to pick.
It's quite daunting to feel as passionately for every issue around.
And that's a problem. Yeah. So you have to choose. You have to choose very carefully.
And when you read about the life of another person, and that is when you realize, which is why it is so important to read memoirs and autobiographies, you realize how very often in life you are nudged by little things that happen, and fate takes on a form, and like the subjects you study in school, your interest in cricket, your interest in sports, and how it all comes together later. And you realize when you actually go back and you join the dots, how everything was meant to lead you to this purpose. As you rightly say, you have to be aware and keep listening to the voices and the things that are happening.
And put your hand up for the difficult assignments, put your hand up for the unusual assignments, and see where it takes you.
Very good. I love that. Put your hand out for the difficult assignments, for the challenges, because
Yep.
a lot of people would shy away from those. And
You only get noticed when you do the difficult stuff.
That's a beautiful message to end this on, Indra. Thank you so much for being with us.
Vinita, thank you. Lovely to talk to you.
We'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.